Hi there, Nigel. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today and for your contributions to Jeppe Boats and Blades to date. So Nigel, while you've only had 3 years of rowing at Jeppe before leaving in 1981, you again started your rowing career as a Masters competitor in 2006 at the age of 41 years old. I have it on record that having built a solid reputation in singles, doubles and quads with no less than 10 course records between Rue de Plata and the VLC Masters courses, you've also been a regular winner at Buffalo, VLC and Women Regattas, and at the Gauteng and SA Champs, you've also competed and won. So congratulations on all those local successes, but that isn't where the story ends. So following this, you in 2011 in the Masters, in the World Masters in Poland, you came first in the C age group in sculling. Following the next event in 2013 in Italy, you achieved a second in the C age group in sculling, third in doubles, and first in the quads. So very diverse, and that's fantastic. And following that, 2016 Denmark, you're certainly going up. You're improving every time you go to the world Masters. So you got first in C sculls, first in D sculls, second in C doubles, and a second in the D doubles as well. Is that correct?
Actually, was the first in the D doubles.
Oh, really?
3 medals, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations on that. And then, of course, in 2020, everyone of competing has all but been destroyed by COVID. So hopefully we can hear more exciting stories. Will it be 2022, 2023?
Well, hopefully we'll be racing in 2021. They've moved
Okay.
2020's regatta to 2021. Okay. 2022 lost out. They've now been moved to 2024 or something. So, but yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, maybe next year if we're lucky.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that. Of course, another really important link between yourself and Jeppe Rowing is the fact that your new scull is being delivered in the same container as R8. So, you know, not only were you a Jeppe Oarsman, not only did you have achieved all these amazing victories, but you're also getting your new boat at exactly the same time as we're getting R8. And I'm sure, like us, you're really keen to get your new boat on the water.
Very much so. And like the Jeppe 8, it's also an all carbon. So I'm really keen.
Excellent. That sounds brilliant. Wonderful. So, so some questions with regards to your time at Jeppe Rowing, and of course, not only Jeppe, but the Masters level as well. So, I guess first question is, while rowing, what drew you to the sport in the first place?
Well, to be honest, I was a Jeppe prep. My brother was a rower, although I wasn't really that involved in what he was doing rowing. I think he only started rowing quite late. And he was 4 years ahead of me at school. And I remember I was in what was then Standard 5. And he dragged me down to the tanks and said, come and try this out. So I thought, oh, well, I'll try that. I hopped in the tank and thought, oh, this seems very interesting. I thought, you know, I've always been for something a bit different. I was a rugby player. I was an athlete. I played tennis. I tried my hand at cricket, and I was okay at cricket, but I wasn't going to be probably not going to be making the 18. So I thought, well, maybe rowing is something that would suit me better. And I enjoyed the little bit of experience I had in the tank, and decided I'll go watch him at a regatta. Long story short, I was sitting watching him competing in what was affectionately known as the third four, otherwise known as the third four. And I got a tap on the shoulder from the Jeppe coach, who said to me, you've been in the tanks. We're a man short in the 8. In you go. So my first time in a boat was also in a race. So, but I loved it so much that was the start of what ended up being a short but relatively successful rowing career at Jeppe.
Oh, fantastic! And of course, after your time at Jeppe, as you've mentioned, you went on and you're still in a very successful rowing career, which is great news. So, in light of that, would you mind telling us something about what rowing means for you? Rowing as a sport means to you in your life?
Well, rowing's actually become a big part of my life. Yes, I'm a rower, and I'm an active rower, but I'm also active behind the scenes. I'm a little bit active on on the committee at VLC, although that's really a smallish role. In my years as a master, I've been on the ROSA Exco. I also brought in a whole new handicap system for masters because the previous handicap system was absolutely, well, let's just say it was interesting. That would be the kindest way of putting it. If you were a youngster, when I say a youngster, and from my perspective, a youngster is anybody who's 27 to 40, you had pretty much no chance of winning against the old guys with the old handicap system because it was so heavily skewed in favor of the old guys. It was just complete guesswork. So we took a scientific approach to it, and we put together a handicap system, which I believe is a lot fairer. No handicap system is ever perfect, but you want something that's at least fair. And so we now have a handicap system that's relatively fair. I'm now busy automating that completely. So there'll be a full website that automates the results, and that for masters, hopefully by VLC Regatta this year. So that's part of my sort of off the water activities. And yeah, I've been involved in various things. My daughter rode for 5 years. I was a member of the committee, the school committee there. In fact, I was the one who, for my sons, received the whole package of boats that we had ordered for Assumption when they started rowing, and helped get Assumption onto the water. So, you know, it's really a passion. My dream is that when I do retire one day, I will retire as a rowing coach.
Excellent. Well, I mean, lots of contributions there. So your contributions make the sport richer, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are grateful for your contributions, which is fantastic. So Nigel, you're familiar with the Jeppe Blades cause, and as I mentioned earlier, thank you for your generous donations to date. What are your thoughts on the Jeppe Blades initiative, and how do you believe we can spread the word further?
I think it's a great initiative. I think I'm kind of saddened to see what's happened to Jeppe Old Boys and the various things that have happened over the years, that they're not as active, the alumni are not as active as some other schools, and that does make it a little bit more challenging. So I think it's a really great cause. Jeppe has always been challenged getting funds together for boats. Even when I was there when the original Alley Cat landed. That was the cash for 8.
Yes,
and,
I was there too.
Yeah. And I was there when Ellie Francis became coach, and what a difference that made to the club. And, you know, I remember how that injected such spirit and such passion back into the club, something that had been lacking in my first year. And as you know, we went on to win champs for a couple of years, I think,
Yes.
In that very boat. I actually had the privilege, if you want to call it that, of sleeping in the dorm next to Graham Cook, who was 2 years ahead of me, and he was the stroke of the first 8 in my final year at Jeppe. He was the stroke of the first 8. So, and he was also a demon in single. I think he was pretty much unbeaten. Yeah. So he was kind of my hero. So it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But and I wouldn't admit that to him now, although I do see him quite often these days. His head's big enough.
Yeah, we speak to Graham, so I know Graham as well. So he was a legend in his time, and not only at school but after school as well. He went on to enjoy a very successful rowing career. Sculls, yes, and I think
he was a lightweight. Yeah,
lightweight was lightweight 4s as well, wasn't it? I can't remember now.
Anyway, he takes great pleasure in telling me how they used to beat the heavies in training.
Yeah, lots of those stories around. So So from your time as a Jeppe oarsman, and also not just that, but your time as a Masters oarsman, what significant memory do you recall with great fondness? Sure,
there's a lot to choose from. The one I mentioned earlier about how I started my rowing career will always stick. You know, the fear of getting into a boat for the first time to go and race. But I have to say that also my very first race at Masters, you know, I'd been doing quite well on the local scene, but you know, you never know how you're going to stack when you go overseas and how well you're going to compete. And we had horrendous conditions, and it's actually a story worth telling. two parts to it that are quite interesting. The first is we got there a few days early so we could do some warming up and some training on the water. And Felipe, as you know, supplies the fleets for World Masters overseas, well, in Europe. And we'd rented boats from Felipe, but the fleet hadn't arrived yet. So I ended up borrowing a Swift from the local club. And I trained in that for a couple of sessions. And then the fleet arrived and they gave me a Felipe. I took it out for about 300 meters, turned around, took it back and said, "Can I have the Swift back, please?" And that's what I raced in. And so my very first victory at World Masters was in a Swift, which I'm now buying. But the other part of that story is the conditions were horrendous. Now Poznan, Poland is, it's a 2-meter course, which is kind of I'm not sure if it's a natural lake or it looks pretty much man-made, but the 2,000 meter start is actually right against a concrete bunker or slash jetty. And you race down the course, but that day the wind was blowing from the 2,000 meter start all the way down. And as you know, we row 1,000. So by the time it hit the landing jetties and the launching jetties at the end, we had waves that were about a meter high. Wow. So I remember getting into the boat, being helped in by some friends, and as they pushed me off, the boat filled up with water. And I mean, it filled up. There was not, it was a case of I had my toes sticking out, and they were about the only part that wasn't underwater. So I thought, well, if I'm like this, pretty much most or so of the others, all the others, so we'll go and we'll race this and see what happens. But rowing up to the start, I thought, no, I can't row like this. So I found a jetty. As I said, it was a narrow man-made course. So I found a jetty on the way up, and I got out, and I emptied out the boat, because by the time we got to the start, although it was still windy, the waves weren't as big. So I obviously started something, because shortly after that, I saw everybody else stopping at the same place and emptying out their boats. So we started in these horrendous conditions. And yeah, I think the fondness of that one is that, absolutely nervous. I mean, shaking at the start, really, really not knowing what to expect. You're scoping the competition, you don't know them, you've never raced them, you look at them, you think, and you look, I remember looking, and then I was in lane 4, and there was a German in lane 1, and he was about the size of the proverbial brick bleep. So he was a big guy, and I thought, this guy's going to be a challenge. And then on my left in lane 5 was a German as well, but he was a smaller guy, probably about my size, which means he wasn't too big, but he also wasn't small. And we start and we take off, and I get a good start. But the guy, the German on my right in lane 1, he's nowhere. The guy in lane 5, he's right there with me. He looks like he's a buzzsaw. He's rating so high. So we raced, and I think around the 500 or 600 meter, he just blew, and I sort of cruised home. But cruise is, I suppose, an interesting word, given that as we were getting close to the jetties, the waves were getting, so a lot of it was just staying in the boat. But it was. Yeah, it was really nice. My very first race ever at a world event, and I ended up with a medal. Of course, I was hoping to take home a couple more, but that never happened at that regatta. But so that is a memory that I'll remember and treasure for a long time.
Oh, brilliant! So I mean, so you beat the elements as well as the competition. So that's fantastic.
Well, yeah, as you know, in rowing, that's half the job done is staying in the boat, especially the single.
Absolutely right, and I'm sure you got stories about Buffalo as well, because that's where a lot of the local racing in terms of weather conditions comes to the fore.
Not to mention the tides and the currents and.
Yep. Well, we sank. In fact, we sank the Alley Cat at Buffalo in a training. Okay, fair enough. It was a training session.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, we sank the Alley Cat. Yeah. So it was horrible. So we were carrying this thing on our shoulders in the water, kind of thing. So just hoping it wasn't going to sink. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that, Nigel. Great memories there. Fantastic achievements. So congrats on that. And we really do wish you many years of continued success, long before, many years before you even think about retiring. So good luck with that.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. It's been great talking to you.
That's an absolute pleasure. So for those who have been listening, I'm sure you've enjoyed listening to this as much as I have. And please do remember to check out our website. That's www.jeppeboatsandblades.co.za. And as usual, always keep going for gold. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.